The Hollow Reach was where starships came to die. Taiho had been flying through this forbidden sector for 3 days now, and every hour brought new ghosts. Dead cruisers floated past his small salvage vessel like sleeping giants. Destroyers with holes in their hulls drifted in eternal silence. Cargo ships, passenger liners, warships of every size, all of them abandoned, forgotten, left to rust among the asteroids and radiation storms. The Galactic Coalition dumped their unwanted things here. Ships too damaged to repair. Technology too old to matter. Machines that had served their purpose and were now worthless. Taiho understood how that felt. He was 32 years old, and he had been a salvage mechanic for 6 years now. Before that, he had been a military engineer, one of the best in his unit. He had fixed engines under enemy fire. He had kept dying ships alive long enough for their crews to escape. He had been good at his job, and he had believed in it. Then came the siege of Outpost Kira. His commanders had ordered a retreat. They had told him to leave the wounded soldiers behind. The math was simple, they said. Saving 20 people would cost 30. It was not worth the risk. Taiho had refused. He had stayed behind, fixed a broken transport, and saved every single wounded soldier. He had disobeyed direct orders to do it. The military had discharged him the next month. Officially, it was for insubordination. Unofficially, it was because he had made his commanders look bad. He had proven that the impossible was possible, and that they had chosen not to try. Now he lived on the edges of civilized space, scraping by on whatever scrap he could find and sell. It was a lonely life, but it was honest. And sometimes, in the quiet moments, he still felt proud of what he had done at Outpost Kira. His ship's scanner beeped. Taiho looked at the screen and frowned. There was an energy signature ahead, something faint but definitely active. That should not be possible. Everything in the Hollow Reach was dead. That was the whole point of this place. He adjusted his course and flew toward the signal. The asteroids grew thicker as he went deeper into the graveyard. His ship was small and nimble, built for exactly this kind of work, but even so, he had to be careful. One wrong move and he would become another piece of floating wreckage. The signal grew stronger. Then he saw it. At first, Taiho thought it was an asteroid. It was that big, a massive dark shape blocking out the stars behind it. But as he got closer, he saw the truth. It was not rock. It was metal. It was a ship. No, not just a ship. A dreadnought. Taiho had seen dreadnoughts before, but only in military bases, and only from a distance. They were the largest warships ever built, 3 kilometers long, bristling with weapons, capable of destroying entire fleets single-handedly. They were symbols of power, of dominance, of everything the Galactic Coalition wanted the universe to fear. This one was covered in battle scars. Its hull was torn open in a dozen places. 2 of its main engines were completely destroyed. Weapons that should have glowed with power were dark and dead, but it was still here. Still whole. Still waiting. Taiho checked the ship's identification beacon. The name came back as unknown vessel, no records found. That was impossible. Every ship in the galaxy was registered. Even destroyed ships remained in the database as historical records. For a dreadnought to have no records at all meant only one thing. Someone had erased it on purpose. Someone wanted this ship. Forgotten. Taiho should have turned around. He should have flown away and never looked back. A ship like this, hidden like this, meant trouble. It meant secrets that powerful people wanted to stay buried. But Taiho had never been good at walking away from broken things. He flew his salvage vessel toward one of the dreadnought's ruined docking bays. The bay doors were frozen open, damaged long ago by whatever battle had nearly killed this giant. He maneuvered inside carefully and landed on the deck. The air was breathable but cold. Taiho put on his thermal suit and grabbed his toolkit. He also grabbed his pistol, just in case. The corridors of the dreadnought were dark. His flashlight cut through the blackness, revealing walls covered in dust and frost. Emergency lights flickered weakly in some sections, proof that somewhere deep inside, power still flowed. He walked for an hour, exploring. The ship was enormous, bigger than anything he had ever worked on. Crew quarters for thousands of people, now empty. Weapon bays that could have armed a small army, now silent. A bridge that had once commanded battles across star systems, now abandoned. Then he found the engineering deck. And the moment he stepped inside, a voice spoke. "Who are you?" Taiho spun around, raising his pistol. But there was no one there. The voice had come from everywhere, and nowhere from the walls themselves. "I asked you a question, human," the voice said. It was female, cold, and angry. "Who are you? Why are you here? Have you come to take more pieces of me? Have you come to finish what they started?" Taiho lowered his pistol slowly. He understood now. "You're the ship's AI," he said. "I am the Heta," the voice replied. "I am this vessel. I am what remains of her. And I'm asking you one more time, why are you here?" Taiho thought about his answer carefully. He could lie. He could say he was just a salvager looking for parts. That was technically true. But something about the voice, the pain in it, the loneliness, made him want to tell the truth. "My name is Taiho," he said. "I'm a mechanic. I came because I saw your energy signature on my scanner. I wanted to know what was still alive out here." Silence. Then, quieter. "Alive. Is that what I am?" "Your systems are still running," Taiho said. "Your reactor still has power. Your voice still works. That sounds alive to me." "I have been alone for 40 years, the Heta said. 40 years in this graveyard. 40 years of silence. My crew left me. The Coalition left me. They said I was too damaged, too expensive, too dangerous. They took everything they could carry, and they flew away, and they never came back." Taiho felt something tighten in his chest. He knew that feeling. He knew what it was like to be thrown away by the people you had served. "I'm sorry," he said. And he meant it. "Sorry?" The Heta's voice turned sharp. "What good is sorry? You are just another scavenger. You will take what you want and leave like all the others. You will—" "No," Taiho said. The AI stopped. "No," he said again. "I'm not going to strip you for parts. I'm not going to take what I want and leave." "Then what do you want?" Taiho looked around the engineering deck. He saw the damage, the broken conduits, the cracked power cells, the systems that had been failing for decades. He saw how much work it would take to fix even a small part of this ship, and he made a decision. "I want to fix you," he said. The Heta was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different. Not softer, exactly, but less hostile. More confused. "Fix me? That is impossible. Even the Coalition said I was beyond repair." Taiho smiled. It was a sad smile, but there was determination in it. "The Coalition said a lot of things," he said. "They were wrong about me. Maybe they were wrong about you too." He set down his toolkit and opened it. Inside were the tools of his trade wrenches, welders, diagnostic equipment, spare parts. Everything a mechanic needed to bring dead machines back to life. "I'm going to start with your secondary power grid," he said. "It looks like the connections are corroded. That's probably why your systems keep flickering. Once I fix that, we can work on the main reactor." "You cannot be serious," the Heta said. "One human cannot repair a dreadnought. It would take years. It would take resources you do not have. It would take someone who doesn't give up," Taiho said. He picked up a wrench and walked toward the nearest power junction. "Lucky for you, that's exactly what I am." He started working. The Heta watched him through her internal sensors. She watched this strange human, this small, fragile creature, begin the impossible task of bringing her back to life. She did not understand him. She did not trust him. But for the first time in 40 years, she felt something other than despair. She felt hope. 3 weeks passed. Taiho worked every day from the moment he woke up until his body refused to move anymore. He slept on the cold floor of the engineering deck, wrapped in thermal blankets, surrounded by his tools. He ate ration bars that tasted like cardboard. He drank recycled water from his salvaged ship's tanks, and slowly, piece by piece, he brought the HFY back to life. The secondary power grid was the first victory. Once Taiho cleaned the corrosion and replaced the burned-out connectors, lights began to flicker on throughout the ship. Not everywhere, just in some sections, but it was a start. For the first time in decades, the HFY corridors were not completely dark. "You actually did it," the AI said. Her voice still held suspicion, but there was something else there now. Surprise, maybe. Or wonder. That was the easy part, Taiho said. He was covered in grease, and his hands were bleeding from a dozen small cuts. He did not care. The reactor will be harder. The reactor is damaged beyond repair. The Coalition engineers said so. The Coalition engineers gave up. Taiho wiped sweat from his forehead. I don't do that. Days turned into weeks. Taiho learned every corner of the engineering deck. He mapped out the damage, made lists of what needed to be fixed, and created a plan. The work was overwhelming. There was so much broken, so much wrong, but he did not let himself think about that. He just focused on the next task, the next wire, the next weld. The HFY watched him constantly at first. She watched because she did not trust him. She expected him to steal something valuable and leave, like all the others who had bored her over the years. But days passed, and he did not leave. Weeks passed, and he kept working. Then she started watching because she was curious. Why do you do this? She asked one night, when Taiho was lying on his back beneath a broken power conduit, his hands working by touch in the cramped space. Do what? This, all of this. You gain nothing from repairing me. You could sell the parts from your own ship and buy passage to somewhere comfortable. You could live a normal life. Instead, you work yourself to exhaustion for a machine that the galaxy has forgotten. Taiho was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. When I was in the military, I learned something important, he said. I learned that the people in charge don't always make the right choices. Sometimes they give up on things or people because it's easier. Because the math doesn't work out. Because saving something would cost too much. He slid out from under the conduit and looked up at the ceiling, where he knew one of the HFY sensors was watching him. But I also learned that the math can be wrong. I saved 20 soldiers at Outpost Kira because I didn't accept what my commanders told me. They said it was impossible. They said those soldiers were already dead. But they weren't. They just needed someone who believed they could be saved. And you believe I can be saved? I know you can. Taiho smiled. You're not broken, HFY. You're just hurt. And everything that's hurt can heal, if someone cares enough to help. The AI did not respond. But somewhere deep in her core, in circuits that had been cold for decades, something warm began to glow. On the 4th week. The pirates came. Taiho was in the middle of replacing a damaged fuel injector when the HFY sensors detected ships approaching. Not one ship, 5. They were small and fast, with weapons mounted on their hulls and dark markings on their sides. Helix Syndicate, the HFY said. Her voice was tight with worry. They control this sector. They must have detected the power fluctuations from the repairs. Taiho's heart sank. He had heard of the Helix Syndicate. Everyone who worked in the outer sectors had. They were pirates, murderers, slavers. They took what they wanted and killed anyone who stood in their way. Can you fight them? He asked, No, my weapons are offline. My shields are at 3%. I cannot even lock the docking bay doors. The pirate ships were getting closer. Taiho could see them on the Hita's flickering sensors, 5 wolves circling a wounded giant. Then I'll fight them myself, he said. That is suicide? There are at least 30 of them. You are one person with a pistol. I'm one person with a pistol, a toolkit, and a ship full of things that can explode. Taiho grabbed his bag and started running. Can you still control the internal systems? Doors, lights, that kind of thing? Some of them. Not all. That'll have to be enough. The pirates boarded 20 minutes later. They came through the same docking bay that Taiho had used, loud and confident. They thought they were raiding a dead ship. They expected no resistance, thought they were wrong. Taiho had spent the time setting traps. He had rigged power cells to overload when touched. He had weakened floor panels over deep maintenance shafts. He had filled corridors with leaking coolant that would burn through armor. The first pirate died when he opened a door and triggered a plasma explosion. The second fell through a floor panel and dropped 30 meters into darkness. The third walked into a corridor filled with coolant mist and started screaming as it ate through his suit. The other pirates got scared. They started moving slower, checking corners, watching their steps. But Taiho knew the ship better than they did now. He had spent weeks crawling through her corridors. He knew where to hide. He knew where to strike. He killed 4 more pirates with his pistol, picking them off one by one from the shadows. When his ammunition ran low, he switched to a wrench. When the wrench broke, he used his hands. The Hedda helped when she could. She slammed doors on pirates, cutting them off from their friends. She turned off lights at critical moments, plunging attackers into darkness. She vented atmosphere from sections where Taiho wasn't, suffocating enemies before they could reach him. Together, the broken AI and the exhausted mechanic, they fought. After 6 hours, the remaining pirates retreated to their ships and fled. They had lost more than half their boarding party. They had gained nothing. Taiho collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. His body was covered in blood, some of it his own, some of it not. His hands were shaking. His vision was blurry. You survived, the Hedda said. There was amazement in her voice. We survived, Taiho corrected her. I did almost nothing. I am still mostly broken. You did this. You, a single human, defeated an entire pirate boarding party. I had help. Taiho laughed weakly. Those door slams were pretty good. The Hatton was silent for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, softer, more vulnerable. I do not understand you, Taiho. I have seen many humans over the years. Soldiers, engineers, commanders. None of them were like you. None of them would have fought like that for a machine they barely knew. You're not just a machine to me, Taiho said. I don't know. You're someone who deserves better than what happened to you. Another silence. Then, quietly, thank you. That night, Taiho made a decision. He could not do this alone. The pirates would come back with more ships, more soldiers. If he stayed here by himself, he would die and the Hedda would be alone again. He needed help. There was only one person he could think of who might be able to provide what he needed. One person who had access to black market parts, hidden supply routes, and the kind of connections that could make problems disappear. His sister, Yuna. They had not spoken in 4 years. After their parents died, Taiho had dealt with his grief by joining the military. He had thrown himself into work, into service, into anything that kept him from having to feel. He had left Yuna behind alone, angry, abandoned. She had every right to hate him, but she was also the only family he had left. He found a communication terminal that still worked and sent a message. It was short. Yuna, it's Taiho. I need help, please. He did not expect a response. 3 days later, he got one. "You disappeared for 4 years," the message said. "You left me alone when I needed you most. You never called, never wrote, never explained. And now you just say, 'I need help, please.'" There was a pause. Then, "Send me your coordinates." "I'm coming. But you better have a damn good explanation." Taiho smiled despite everything. That was Yuna, angry, sharp, but unable to refuse when family needed her. A week later, a small ship arrived at the Hollow Reach. It was fast and sleek, designed for smuggling. When it docked with the Hedda, a woman stepped out. Yuna was 28 years old, with short black hair and eyes that could cut through steel. She looked at the ruined corridors of the dreadnought, then at her brother, thin, exhausted, covered in bandages. "You look terrible," she said. "Thanks. You look good. Don't try to be nice. I'm still mad at you." She crossed her arms. "What the hell is all this?" Taiho told her everything. The discovery, the AI, the pirates, the plan. When he was done, Yuna was quiet for a long time. Then she shook her head. "You want to repair a dreadnought that the entire Galactic Coalition gave up on," she said, "with black market parts, in hostile territory, while pirates try to kill you. Yes. And you think I'm going to help you. I hope you will." Yuna stared at him. Her eyes were hard, angry. But behind the anger, Taiho could see something else. Something that looked almost like admiration. "I know someone," she finally said. "A retired engineer. He designed reactor cores for dreadnoughts before the war. He might be able to help if you can convince him." "What's his name?" "Do-wan. And there's something you should know about him." Yuna's expression grew serious. "He designed the Hita's original reactor. He was on the team that abandoned her." Taiho looked toward the nearest sensor. Do-wan arrived on a transport ship that looked like it was held together by rust and prayers. He was 55 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much. When he stepped onto the Hita's deck and looked around at the damaged corridors, his face went pale. His hands started shaking. "I never thought I would see her again," he whispered. Taiho stood nearby with Yuna, watching the old engineer carefully. "You were part of the team that built her?" "I designed her reactor core." Do-wan's voice was hollow. "It was the most advanced power system ever created. We called it the Dragon's Heart. It could generate more energy than a small star." He paused. "And I was part of the team that left her here to die. Why?" Yuna asked bluntly. "Why did you abandon her?" Do-wan was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, and his words were heavy with old guilt. "The Battle of the Crimson Nebula. 40 years ago. The Hedda was the flagship of our fleet. We were winning, crushing the enemy, pushing them back across 3 systems. Then something went wrong." He walked slowly down the corridor, running his fingers along the scarred walls. The Coalition had given the Hedda experimental weapons, things that had never been tested in real combat. During the battle, one of those weapons misfired. It created a cascade failure that nearly destroyed the ship from the inside. "And the crew?" Taiho asked. "Evacuated. Most of them, anyway. But the Hedda was too damaged to move. The Coalition looked at the repair costs and decided it wasn't worth it." Do-wan's voice turned bitter. "But that wasn't the real reason they left her." "What was the real reason?" "Fear." The old engineer stopped walking and turned to face them. "The Coalition was afraid of her. The experimental weapons, they worked too well. Even in that damaged state, the Hedda had destroyed more enemy ships than the rest of our fleet combined. The commanders realized that if she was ever fully operational, she would be too powerful to control. So they erased her from the records," Yuna said. "They pretended she never existed. Everyone who knew about her was reassigned, retired, or silenced." Do-wan shook his head. I spent 40 years trying to forget, trying to convince myself that we had no choice. But the guilt never went away. From the walls, Behita's voice emerged. It was cold and sharp. "You abandoned me," she said. "You built me, and then you threw me away like garbage." Dowan flinched. "I know, and I'm sorry. I know those words don't mean anything. I know I can't undo what was done, but I can try to make it right." He looked up at the sensor where the AI was watching him. "That's why I came. Not because Yuna asked me. Because I owe you a debt that I can never fully repay." The Heta was silent. Taiho stepped forward. "Can you help us? Can you fix her reactor?" "I can do more than that." Dowan reached into his bag and pulled out a data chip. "I kept copies of all my original designs. The Coalition thought they destroyed everything, but I saved the blueprints. Every system, every modification, every secret feature that was supposed to be erased." He handed the chip to Taiho. "With these plans and the right parts, we can not only repair the Heta, we can upgrade her." Over the next few weeks, the crew grew. Yuna brought in supplies from her smuggling contacts, power cells, shield generators, weapons components. Some of the parts were new. Others were salvaged from other wrecks in the Hollow Reach. All of them were expensive, and Taiho knew that Yuna was spending her own money to make this happen. "Don't get emotional about it," she told him when he tried to thank her. "I'm just making an investment. When this ship is operational, I'm going to charge you rent." But Taiho saw the way she looked at the Heta. He saw the pride in her eyes when a system came online or a repair succeeded. His sister was pretending not to care, but she cared deeply. She always had. Then came Yunji. She arrived without warning, a small fighter ship appearing on sensors one morning, requesting permission to dock. When she stepped out, Taiho saw a woman in her mid-30s with hard eyes and military posture. "Dawan contacted me," she said, not bothering with introductions. "He said you needed a weapons specialist. I'm the best one he knows. Why would you help us?" Yuna asked suspiciously. "Because I owe Dawan my life." Yunji's expression didn't change. 10 years ago, my ship was crippled in a skirmish. I was floating in dead space, waiting to die. He happened to be passing by and pulled me out. I've been waiting to pay that debt ever since. And you're willing to risk your life for a ship you've never met? Yunji looked around at the Hita's damaged corridors. For the first time, something like emotion flickered across her face. "I've spent my whole career making weapons," she said quietly. "Building things that destroy. Maybe it's time I help build something that survives." The last member of the crew was not human. Kibo was a Velith, an insectoid species with 4 arms, compound eyes, and a reputation for being the best mechanics in the galaxy. He arrived on a cargo hauler filled with specialized tools and equipment that Taiho had never seen before. "I heard there was a human trying to repair a Coalition dreadnought," Kibo said. His voice was clicking and strange, filtered through a translator. I did not believe it. "I came to see if the rumors were true." "They're true," Taiho said. "Are you here to help or just watch?" Kibo's compound eyes studied Taiho for a long moment. Then he made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Humans are strange creatures," he said. "My species has always wondered about you. You are small, weak, short-lived. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. Yet somehow, you have spread across the galaxy faster than any other species. What does that have to do with the Heta?" "Everything." Kibo moved past Taiho, his 4 arms already reaching for tools. Other species would look at this ship and see a wreck. They would calculate the cost, measure the difficulty, and walk away. But humans see something different. You see possibility. You see potential. You see what something could be instead of what it is. He turned back to face Taiho. "That is why I am here. I want to see if the legends are true. I want to see if a human can really do the impossible. The months that followed were the hardest of Taiho's life. The crew worked around the clock, repairing systems that had been dead for decades. Do-hwan focused on the reactor, rebuilding the dragon's heart piece by piece. Yoonji brought the weapons online, calibrating targeting systems and restoring power to gun batteries. Yuna managed supplies and communications, keeping the whole operation running. Kibo proved to be worth 10 mechanics, his forearms working faster than Taiho's eyes could follow. And Taiho held them all together. He was not the smartest person on the ship, or the most skilled, but he was the one who never stopped believing. When systems failed, he fixed them. When morale dropped, he lifted it. When problems seemed impossible, he found solutions. The Heta watched all of this with growing wonder. "You are exhausted," she told Taiho one night, when he was working alone in the engineering section. "You have not slept in 30 hours. Your vital signs showed dangerous levels of fatigue." "I'll sleep when the tertiary power grid is online," Taiho muttered. "You say that every night. And every night, you find another system that needs repair." Taiho stopped working. He leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. "I keep thinking about when I found you," he said. "You were alone, hurting, abandoned. I know what that feels like, Heta. After the military discharged me, I thought my life was over. I thought I would never matter to anyone again. And now? Now I have a crew, a purpose, a ship that's counting on me." He opened his eyes and looked at the sensor above him. "I'm not fixing you because I want something in return. I'm fixing you because it's the right thing to do. Because everyone deserves a second chance. Even ships that the galaxy has forgotten." The Heta processed his words for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was different, warmer, more vulnerable. "I have memories," she said, "of my old crew, of the battles we fought together, of the moment when the evacuation ships left and I realized I was alone." There was a pause. "For 40 years I thought those memories were all I had. I thought I would spend eternity reliving the moment of my abandonment. And now? Now I have new memories. Of you sleeping on the floor of my engineering deck because you refused to leave. Of Yuna arguing with smugglers to get me better parts. Of Do-hwan crying when my reactor first hummed back to life." The lights on the deck flickered, not from damage, but from something else. Something that looked almost like emotion. "I am no longer alone," the Heta said. "And that is because of you." But their time was running out. Yuna's contacts reported that the Helix Syndicate was gathering a fleet. The pirates had not forgotten their defeat at the Heta's hands. Admiral Goro, the Syndicate's ruthless leader, had declared the Dreadnought his personal prize. "He's coming with 20 ships," Yuna reported during a crew meeting. "Maybe more. He wants to strip this ship for parts and sell her piece by piece. How long do we have?" Taiho asked. 2 weeks. Maybe less." The crew exchanged worried looks. The Hatton was stronger now, but she was not ready for a battle. Her shields were at 60%. Her weapons were partially online. Her engines could barely manage half speed. Against 20 ships, they would be destroyed. "We could run," Yoonji said. "The Hatton is mobile now. We could jump to another sector and hide." "Running won't solve anything," Taiho said. "They'll follow us. They'll hunt us down." The Helix Syndicate fleet arrived on the 14th day. 20-3 ships emerged from hyperspace, their weapons already charging. At their center was the flagship of Admiral Goro, a massive battlecruiser called the Iron Fang. It was painted black, covered in the skulls of enemy commanders that Goro had killed with his own hands. On the bridge of the Heta, Taiho watched the enemy fleet approach. His crew stood around him, Yuna at communications, Yoonji at weapons, Do-hwan monitoring the reactor, Kibo ready to handle any emergency repairs. 23 ships, Yuna said quietly. We counted 20. The Admiral brought reinforcements, Yunji replied. Her hands were steady on the weapon controls. He's not taking any chances this time. Can we win? Yuna asked. Nobody answered. They all knew the truth. The Hatton was stronger now, much stronger than before, but she was still one ship against an armada. The math did not look good. Then the Hetta spoke. I have spent 40 years waiting to die, she said. Her voice filled the bridge, strong and clear. I have watched my hull corrode. I have felt my systems fail one by one. I have been alone in the dark, dreaming of nothing but the moment I was abandoned. The screens flickered as she spoke, images of the past dancing across them. The old crew, the old battles, the moment when the last evacuation ship flew away and left her behind. But then you came, the Hetta continued. A small human in a broken salvage ship. You looked at me and saw something worth saving. You gave me a crew. You gave me a purpose. You gave me hope. The images changed. Now they showed the past months Taiho sleeping on the engineering deck. Yuna arguing with smugglers over parts. Dohan crying as the reactor hummed back to life. Kibo's forearms working tirelessly. Yunji calibrating weapons with cold precision. I am no longer the ship that was abandoned, the Hetta said. I am something new. Something better. And I will not let my family be destroyed. Her voice dropped to something that sounded almost like a growl. Not by pirates. Not by admirals. Not by anyone. Taiho smiled despite the fear in his chest. You heard the lady, he said. Let's give them a fight they'll never forget. Admiral Goro's voice crackled over the communication system. He was laughing. A dead ship and a handful of fools, he said. I expected more. Surrender now, and I'll kill you quickly. Fight, and I'll make you watch while I tear your precious dreadnought apart piece by piece. Taiho keyed the response channel. My name is Taiho. I'm a mechanic. And this ship is mine now. If you want her, come and take her. He cut the channel. That was either very brave or very stupid, Yunji said. Probably both, Yuna muttered. The pirate fleet moved forward. 23 ships against 1. The battle began. The first wave of enemy fighters came screaming toward the Hetta, their weapons blazing. Yunji responded with precision fire, her targeting systems identifying weak points and prioritizing threats. Fighter after fighter exploded in brilliant flashes of light, but more kept coming. For every ship Yunji destroyed, 2 more took its place. The Hita's shields flickered as enemy fire hammered against them. Shields at 70%, Dohan reported. We can't take much more of this. We need to take out the bigger ships, Taiho said. The fighters are just distractions. Focus on the cruisers. The Hita's main gun spoke. A beam of pure energy lanced across space and struck an enemy cruiser. The pirate ship's shields held for 3 seconds before collapsing. Then the ship itself broke apart, torn in half by the terrible power of the dreadnought's weapons. Admiral Goro's voice returned, no longer laughing. Impossible. That ship should be a wreck. How are you? You forgot something, Admiral. Taiho interrupted. You forgot that humans don't give up. You forgot that we fix things. And you forgot that this ship has spent 40 years wanting revenge. The battle continued for hours. The Hetta fought like a wounded tiger, striking hard and fast, using every trick and tactic the crew could think of. Taiho coordinated everything from the bridge, directing power to shields when needed, to weapons when necessary, to engines when escape was the only option. Doan kept the reactor stable, pushing it harder than it had ever been pushed before. The dragon's heart roared with power, feeding energy to every system at once. Kibo raced through the ship, his forearms a blur of motion. He patched hull breaches, rerouted damaged systems, and fixed problems before they could become disasters. Yunji never stopped firing. Her face was calm, focused, as she destroyed ship after ship. She had spent her career building weapons. Now she was using them to protect something she cared about, and Yuna kept everyone connected. She jammed enemy communications, coordinated crew movements, and made sure that no one felt alone in the chaos. But it was not enough that the pirate fleet was too large. For every ship the Heta destroyed, 2 more closed in. The shields dropped 60%, then 40%, then 20%. Hull breaches opened across the outer sections. Systems started failing. "We're losing," Yuna said. Her voice was steady, but Taiho could hear the fear beneath it. He did not respond. He was thinking, planning, trying to find a way out. "Taiho," the Heta said. Her voice was urgent. "There is something I should tell you. Something I kept secret. Now is not the time. Now is exactly the time. The Coalition abandoned me because they feared my experimental weapons. But they never tested the most powerful one." The main view screen changed, showing a schematic that Taiho had never seen before. It was a weapon something massive, hidden deep in the Heta's core. "They called it the Novolence," the Heta said. It was designed to destroy capital ships with a single shot. But the power requirements were too dangerous. They thought it would destroy me if I ever used it. "Will it?" Taiho asked. "Possibly. Probably. The Coalition never finished the safety systems." Taiho looked at the schematic, then at the battle raging outside. The pirate fleet was closing in. Admiral Goro's flagship was approaching, ready to deliver the killing blow. "Can you hit the Iron Fang from here?" He asked. Double quotes, "Yes. But if the Nova Lance fails, if the power surge is too great, I could explode. Everyone on board would die." The crew was silent. They all understood what Taiho was considering. "There has to be another way," Dowan said. He was pale, his hands shaking. "We can reroute power, redirect the energy flow." "There's no time," Taiho said. He turned to face the sensor where the Heta was watching him. "If we don't stop them now, we die anyway. At least this way, we have a chance. Taiho, I refuse to let you sacrifice yourself for me. Not after everything you have done." "This isn't a sacrifice," Taiho said. "This is a choice. And it's not just for you, it's for all of us. For everyone who was ever thrown away by people who didn't think they were worth saving." He walked toward the engineering deck. The others followed, confusion on their faces. "Where are you going?" Yuna demanded. "To the reactor room." Taiho started running. If the Novolance is going to work, someone needs to stabilize the power flow manually. Someone needs to be at the heart of the dragon to keep it from tearing itself apart. "That's suicide," Dohan shouted. "Maybe." Taiho kept running. "Or maybe it's just another impossible thing that needs to get done." The reactor room was deep in the ship's core. By the time Taiho reached it, the Heta was shaking from enemy fire. Alarms blared. Lights flickered. The walls themselves seemed to groan in pain. He found the main control console and started working. "Taiho, stop," the Heta pleaded. "I cannot let you do this. You can't stop me either." His fingers flew across the controls. "Fire the Nova Lance. I'll handle the rest. But, Heta." Taiho stopped and looked up at the sensor above him. "Trust me, please." A long pause. Then, quietly, "I trust you." The ship began to hum. Deep in the core, something ancient and terrible started to wake up. Taiho felt the deck vibrate beneath his feet, felt the air grow hot, felt power building beyond anything he had ever experienced. On the bridge, Yunji targeted the Iron Fang. Nova Lance charging. 20 seconds to full power. Admiral Goro saw the energy build up on his sensors. He screamed orders at his crew to fall back, to get away, but it was too late. The pirates had come too close. "Nova Lance ready," the Hedda announced. Firing. A beam of pure white light erupted from the dreadnought's bow. It was brighter than a star, hotter than the sun. It crossed the distance to the Iron Fang in less than a second and struck the battlecruiser dead center. The flagship did not explode. It simply ceased to exist. In the reactor room, Taiho fought for his life. The power surge was massive, far greater than anything the systems were designed to handle. Consoles exploded around him. Fire erupted from broken conduits. The temperature rose until his suit began to melt. But he kept working. He rerouted power. He dumped excess energy into backup systems. He did everything a mechanic could do to keep the heart of a dragon from destroying itself. And somehow, impossibly, he succeeded. The Nova Lance stopped firing. The Hedda stabilized. The remaining pirate ships, terrified by what they had just witnessed, fled into hyperspace. On the bridge, the crew stared at their screens in disbelief. "They're gone," Yuna whispered. "They're all gone." "Taiho," Dawan shouted into his communicator. "Taiho, are you there? Can you hear me?" Static. Then, a weak voice. "I told you to trust me." They found him collapsed on the floor of the reactor room. His suit was ruined. His skin was burned. But he was alive. As the crew gathered around him, as Doan worked to stabilize his injuries, the Hedda spoke one more time. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. A forgotten dreadnought had risen from the graveyard of the Hollow Reach. A single human mechanic had rebuilt her from nothing. Together, they had destroyed an entire pirate fleet, including the legendary Admiral Goro himself. Stories like that did not stay quiet for long. Within weeks, the name Heta was being whispered in stations and outposts across every sector. Smugglers spoke of the mechanic who talked to machines like they were people. Soldiers passed around recordings of the Nova Lance, watching in awe as it erased a battlecruiser from existence. Children played games where they pretended to be the crew of the reborn dreadnought. And in the halls of the Galactic Coalition, powerful people grew very, very nervous. Admiral Soren stood before the Coalition Council, her uniform crisp and her expression carefully neutral. She was 55 years old, with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen 30 years of military service. She had commanded fleets, won wars, and earned every medal the Coalition could give. Now she was being given an order that made her sick. "The Hedda must be destroyed," said Councillor Park, his voice cold and absolute. "She is Coalition property. She was supposed to remain forgotten. This situation cannot be allowed to continue." "With respect, Councillor," Soren said, "the Heta is no longer the ship we abandoned. She has been extensively modified. Her crew has demonstrated remarkable capabilities. A direct assault could be costly. Then make it costly." Councillor Park leaned forward. "Take whatever ships you need. Find that dreadnought and eliminate it. Eliminate the crew. Leave nothing behind that could embarrass the Coalition." Soren wanted to argue. She wanted to point out the injustice of hunting down people who had done nothing wrong except survive. But she had served the Coalition her entire life. She had followed orders even when they were difficult. "Understood, sir," she said. "I will leave immediately." 3 days later, a Coalition battle group jumped into the Hollow Reach. 15 warships, armed with the best weapons the Coalition could provide. At their center was Soren's flagship, the carrier Righteous Dawn. On the Hedda, alarms wailed. "Coalition signatures," Yuna reported. Her voice was tight with fear. 15 ships. They're broadcasting official Coalition codes. Taiho stood on the bridge, still recovering from his injuries. His skin was scarred from the reactor room, and he moved slowly, but his eyes were sharp. "Open a channel," he said. The view screen flickered, and Admiral Soren appeared. Her face was hard, professional, the face of someone doing a job they did not want to do. "This is Admiral Soren of the Galactic Coalition," she said. "You are commanded to surrender immediately. The vessel designated Hedda is Coalition property. Her crew will be taken into custody for questioning. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force." Taiho looked at his crew. Yuna, Yunji, Kibo. They had all chosen to stay, even knowing this moment would come. They had chosen him, chosen the Hedda, chosen this impossible dream. He would not let them down. "Admiral Soren," he said, "my name is Taiho. I'm a mechanic. I have something to say." He took a deep breath, and then he spoke words that would change the galaxy. "The Coalition abandoned this ship 40 years ago. You threw her away like garbage because you were afraid of what she could become. You erased her from your records and pretended she never existed. But she did exist. She waited in the dark, alone, for 4 decades. And then I found her." His voice grew stronger. "I fixed her. Not because I wanted power or glory. Not because I thought I could use her against anyone. I fixed her because she deserved better than what happened to her. Because everyone deserves a second chance. Because the value of something is not determined by the people who throw it away. It's determined by the people who choose to save it." He stepped closer to the screen. "You say she's Coalition property. I say she's mine. I rebuilt her with my own hands. I bled for her. I nearly died for her. And I will not surrender her to people who abandoned her when she needed them most." Admiral Soren's expression flickered. Something changed in her eyes, just for a moment before the professional mask returned. "You cannot fight 15 warships," she said. "This is your only warning. Maybe not." Taiho smiled grimly. "But I can try." He cut the channel and turned to his crew. "Battle stations. Let's show them what we can do." The Coalition fleet advanced. The Hedda stood alone against them, 1 dreadnought against 15 warships. The math was even worse than before. This time, there would be no tricks, no surprises. Just firepower and willpower. The first shots were fired. The Hedda dodged and weaved, her engines pushing harder than they ever had before. Yunji returned fire with deadly accuracy, targeting shield generators and weapon systems. Yuna jammed enemy communications, creating confusion in the Coalition formation. But it was not enough. "Shields at 40%, Kibo reported. "We have hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. "Keep fighting," Taiho ordered. "We don't give up." Then something unexpected happened. A ship appeared on the sensors, a small freighter, civilian design. Then another. Then a dozen. Then 100 ships were emerging from hyperspace all around the battlefield. Smuggler vessels. Salvage ships. Old military cruisers with faded markings. Ships from a dozen different species, none of them Coalition. Yuna stared at her screen in disbelief. "I'm receiving transmissions. They're here to help us." "What?" The speakers crackled, and a voice came through, a gruff, familiar voice that Taiho recognized. "This is Captain Hana of the freighter Lucky Star. We heard your broadcast, mechanic. We heard what you said about second chances." Another voice joined in. "This is Minho of the salvage vessel Iron Scrap. We've all been thrown away by someone. We know what it feels like to be forgotten." More voices. More ships. They kept coming, dozens, hundreds, filling the space around the Hedda like a protective swarm. "You gave that ship a second chance," Captain Hana said. "Now we're going to do the same for you." Admiral Soren watched the sensor readings with growing amazement. The ships gathering around the Hedda were not military vessels. They were not powerful or well-armed. Many of them were barely holding together, but there were so many of them, and they were all transmitting the same message. "We stand with the Hedda." "Admiral," her tactical officer said nervously. If we engage, we'll be firing on civilian vessels. The political consequences would be, I know. Soren stared at the screen, watching the ragged fleet of outcasts and exiles form a wall around the dreadnought. She thought about her orders. Destroy the Heta. Leave nothing behind. Then she thought about what she had seen. A forgotten ship, brought back to life by one stubborn mechanic. A crew of misfits, fighting for something they believed in. And now, an entire fleet of ordinary people, willing to die to protect them. This was not what the Coalition stood for. This was not what she had spent 30 years serving. Admiral? Her officer asked. Your orders? Soren was silent for a long moment. Then she made her decision. Stand down, she said quietly. Sir? I said stand down. Soren turned away from the screen. Tell the Council that the Heta was destroyed. Tell them the threat has been eliminated. But sir, the recordings will be classified. Soren's voice was hard, now final. The battle never happened. We never found the ship. Is that clear? Her officers exchanged uncertain looks. But they had served under Soren for years. They trusted her judgment. Yes, sir, the tactical officer said. The Hatton was destroyed. Understood. The Coalition fleet turned and jumped away. Just like that, the battle was over. On the Heta's bridge, the crew stared at their screens in shock. They're leaving, Yuna said. They're actually leaving. Why? Yoonji demanded. They had us. They could have destroyed us. Taiho looked at the view screen, where the ragged fleet of outcasts still surrounded the Heta. He thought about Admiral Soren's face, the flicker of something in her eyes when he spoke about second chances. Maybe, he said quietly, even admirals can be reminded of what really matters. The celebration lasted for days. Ships from the relief fleet docked with the Heta, their crews coming aboard to meet the legendary mechanic and his crew. Stories were shared. Food was exchanged. Friendships were formed. Taiho was offered command of the new fleet, a position of power and influence that would have been unimaginable just a year ago. He refused. I'm a mechanic, he told the captains who offered him leadership. That's all I've ever been. That's all I want to be. But you've done something incredible, Captain Hana insisted. You've given hope to everyone who was ever abandoned. You've shown the galaxy that ordinary people can stand up to power and win. I didn't do it alone. Taiho gestured at his crew, at the Heta around them. Everyone here played a part. Everyone who came to help us played a part. This wasn't about one person. It was about all of us choosing to believe in something worth fighting for. Slowly, the fleet dispersed. Ships returned to their normal lives, smuggling, salvaging, surviving on the edges of civilized space. But they carried something with them now. A story, a legend. A reminder that even the forgotten could rise. And the Heta remained. She was different now. Stronger. Better. Not just in her systems and weapons, but in her soul. She had been abandoned, forgotten, left to die. And she had been saved by the most unlikely hero imaginable. One night, when the ship was quiet and the crew was asleep, Taiho sat alone on the bridge.